right, so this video is going to be a big shout out to HF and Sawdust. He did a dyno run on this saw. It's an expansion chamber build. We're going to give it a little run, probably give it a little tune, clean it up some. He was losing power on the dyno as it built heat. That's typical. That's pretty typical of a lean tune issue. So we're going to fatten her up a little bit here. See if that cleans her up. But yeah, we're going to run this thing. HF gave it a dyno run. He made some cuts with it. And I'll spit up a printout or something. I'll figure out a way. I'll put up on the screen here the dyno results of this saw. She did pull over 6 horse. And yeah, it's not far from a stock saw, really. You know, base gasket delete, some intake timing, a whole bunch of carb work for, you know, we got to get that alcohol pushed through this thing. It is an expansion chamber and the saw is running on methanol, 100%. There's no gasoline involved. So yeah, let's give her some cuts and have some fun. This saw was more about smiles. This saw is all about creating smiles. It wasn't really ever intended to be like some hot race build or nothing. Just for fun, really. You know what I mean? The expansion chamber does not look fantastic at all. It was never designed for this saw. We could rebuild it, do a whole other one designed for this saw and probably get more. We could probably get over 7 with just by doing that. Do some port work and we'd probably be in the, you know, the 8 to 9 horsepower range maybe. So it's pretty neat watching this thing run, or actually running it. Really, it kind of gives you that expansion chamber alcohol experience, but not on a really super hot build. You know what I mean? Because of how this thing is or whatever. It gives you that power band, the feel of the power band. So if you're familiar with like dirt bikes and stuff, you got that power band. This has the same thing. It's just, you know, you're using it to cut wood. So yeah, let's go ahead and give her some cuts. We'll cut on this piece of oak. This oak's really hard, so it's not going to be the fastest. It is a hand square file chain. The last hand file chain that I have is on this saw. Everything else that I've done was with my grinder. And I can tell you, there's not a lot of difference between a hand file and a grinder. If you got, you know, if you want to put the patience in and everything, a hand file chain, I'm not finding really much difference between them and grinders. So yeah, you don't have to spend the money for a square grinder. A file will get you there. It will. It's more about learning how to do it and putting the practice in. So yeah, enough rambling. Let's make some cuts. I need to move the camera though, because I can't have the expansion chamber pointing towards you. It'll really screw with the camera. This thing's quite loud. So, alrighty. She ain't got no gas in it. I'm gonna purge it. I'm just gonna take the opportunity to purge it. Well, there we go. Let me just make sure I get all the drops of fuel out of this. All right, we're just gonna put regular gas in it now and purge it. Fired it up until she stalls, or at least almost stalls. Sometimes they won't stall out. This just helps protect the engine and the fuel system. That alcohol, I mean, I'm sure you've all heard about the horror stories of alcohol. So we just purge it. We just put regular gas in it and run it until it won't run anymore, or it's, you know what I mean. Sometimes you're not pushing quite enough fuel to make it stall out, but sometimes you are. that's it. That's a good purge right there. She was, so I don't have an air filter on it. I have an elbow coming up and a hole here, so I can just squirt a prime into it. Never really have to use that though. But yeah, I had freaking fuel flying out of that thing. The gas was. She's purged. I don't have any worries. There's you. Definitely want to give a thanks to HF for that dyno run. I was always, ever since I built this thing, I've been curious to know how much horsepower it's producing. You know what I mean? Definitely far more than stock. So in case you guys are wondering why it was losing power as it got hot, it's a tune issue. So what you got to do is you actually got to run the saw until it's hot, and then set your tuning at that point, and fatten it up, because you're leaning out is what's happening. It's just going to keep leaning out on you as it gets hot, and you get things fattened up, or at least that's the way this, I should say, that's the way this one is. You just keep fattening your tune up, but you gotta wait until she's good and hot. This expansion chamber, the more you run it, the hotter it gets, and the hotter it gets, the more it'll change the way it runs. Okay, so like say you're in a situation where you're racing with an expansion chamber build, you need the tune to be at the sweet spot for the first 3 cuts. But like say this one here, I try to keep the tune optimal for like 10, 12 plus cuts in, which it's a little fatter. So what happens is when you first start cutting with it, the first couple of cuts are going to be really, really fat, and it may not run so well. And it's not until you get everything really good and hot that it starts cleaning up, and you know what I mean? And a lot of it's just that expansion chamber. I've had enough horrible things go wrong on lean tunes with alcohol that I kind of learned my lesson, if you know what I mean. So yeah, little something there about about this alcohol, and it's funny the way it got to be tuned. So you're actually tuning either for the first couple of cuts, or you're tuning for the fat tune, or for later, like 10 or 12 or plus cuts. It seems, at least that's the way it seems to be to me. Well, I should say with these expansion chambers, it's like the hotter they get, the leaner they start running. So, and the leaner they start running, the more power you lose. And you see that on the dyno sheet. You see as it starts building more and more heat, it just starts losing power. And that's the way she is. You know, I'm sure we can make it better, but I'm not going to. She's fine just as is. Take it out and play with it. You know, it's for smiles. This isn't for a race, you know what I mean? Well, I'll never take it to, well, I shouldn't say I'll never take it to race, because I might. If there's ever a race, specifically for something like this, dang straight, I'll show up at a race with it. But it was like early days, so this is like one of the first alcohol builds that I was involved with. And this is a 3-person deal here. So me, Muffler, and Bellhopper were all 3 involved with this build. And I'd say Bellhopper and Muffler did most of it. I was more of the observer than anything. But yeah, this was kind of like me, early stages, learning about this stuff. And, you know, getting better at it. My alcohol builds nowadays are way better. And I'm still not at Hopper's level. If you wait until you see, he built me another 372, and it's on alcohol. Wait until you see that thing done. That thing's going to be freaking insane. It's custom head. Just wait until you see that thing in action. It's going to be nuts. So anyway, yeah, there we go. The Joncutter, it's a 5800 Joncutter. Hey Chaff, thanks buddy. You did a great job on your dyno. And in fact, you actually did one thing that I wasn't expecting. You actually showed how the heat affects the way the saw runs, especially in the expansion chamber and everything, because that's stuff you have to take in consideration when you build these things. Sure, you might get it cut good on your first cut, but you'll notice is guys on alcohol might make 2 or 3 cuts, and they lean out on the 3rd cut, and it's just like, it just dies right in the cut. It's lean, and that's the way alcohol is. The hotter you get, the quicker she's going to lean out. It's the way it behaves. And you kind of showed everybody on your dyno sheets how that happens and how you have to be prepared for it and get your tune just right and everything. The only other thing to mention here is that chain. It sucks. It needs sharpened. It's pretty bad. I shouldn't have sent it, but I did. He probably didn't. He probably noticed that the chain sucks and never said a word on his video. I'll tell you right now, it sucks. That chain is horrible. I gotta sharpen it. And I sent it to him. I thought it was fine until I got into this cherry. I noticed it on the little one a bit. Once I got into this cherry, I was like, ooh, this thing's awful. Here I got change half crate and cutting with it. Oh well. He was a kind person and never mentioned on video how bad that chain sucks. And it's pretty rough. It's awful. So thanks HF for not telling me I suck. I'll take care of that myself. But anyway, hey, we'll catch you in the next one. Later.